I think these guys should just come to us, guys. I mean, the action is here. Minister, obviously, we'll just speak about what time that plane is expected to land. What kind of journey has it been? We'll talk about your personal experience of going to the site as well. The identification process, of course, continues for those who remain there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the assistance that Nigeria has provided South Africa. The willingness, I've been monitoring all your press conferences. Yes, and the remaining bodies, what's going to happen? When is the likelihood? Do we know at this stage? All of that. Well, thank you very much once again, Ayanda. Well, the second plane has just touched down here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. We're expecting the repatriation team that assisted in getting these 74 bodies here to South Africa today, which are expected to land at about 9:45. We're expecting them to disembark from that plane any minute now. Certainly, they will have their own tales to tell about how difficult it has been for them to bring these South African bodies back home. And we're expecting quite an emotional day here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base, where the relatives of these victims of the building collapse certainly will feel the pain, but of course the excitement and the hope again, once again, some closure to a certain degree there, Ayanda, that their loved ones are now back home thanks to the South African government, and certainly they'll be able to lay their loved ones to rest. Certainly, in terms of culture, Ayanda, families within a week already are able to bury their families, but they've had to wait for just over 2 months for that to happen. Certainly very painful experiences for these families. But the man who has been at the center of all of this, of course, appointed by President Jacob Zuma to facilitate this process, the special envoy to Nigeria on the repatriation process, as well as the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, joins me now. Minister, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure you're quite exhausted this morning. It's been a number of days, the facilitation of the repatriation. Finally, 74 of those bodies are coming home this morning.
Indeed, it's very traumatic, especially for the families, especially for those 11 who we could not repatriate yesterday. But President Zuma has made a commitment that we need to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, that all 85 must be brought back home. But that's dependent on the Nigerian authorities that are responsible for all these DNA samples. We're going to be cooperating with them to ensure that eventually those 85 are brought back when it is humanly and scientifically possible.
I see the numbers were confirmed quite late last night, Minister, about exactly how many people will be repatriated today. What happens now for the remainder in Nigeria? Of course, the identification process will continue, but do we have more staff on the ground there to ensure that does happen soon?
Indeed, as you know, this happened in the state of Lagos, and the Nigerian authorities in the state of Lagos, they've contracted a forensic company in Stellenbosch. So they are the ones that have to confirm whenever they get a match when they do these samples. So that's why this process is so time consuming. But we've committed ourselves that whenever our assistance is required, because we have experts as well within the South African Police Service Forensic Laboratory that can be able to reinforce in order to ensure that we bring closer to this whole episode that has happened to the people of South Africa.
Was one of the stumbling blocks, Minister, relating to Nigerian laws, for example, that of course the South African government needed to abide by those before those bodies can be repatriated? We were speaking to the Health Minister a bit earlier on, who mentioned that as one of the stumbling blocks.
Yes, indeed. That's why the President appointed me as a special envoy. When I arrived there, we met with His Excellency President Jonathan, who pledged his full support, and indeed he introduced us as well to the Minister of Health from the federal government of Nigeria. Then we also met the governor of the state of Lagos, the commissioner for health, the chief pathologist, all the people who take decisions. We have to meet them in order to ensure that we speed up this process so that we can be able to repatriate all those South Africans.
But there have been many questions that we raised, Minister, about why it took so long. You've alluded to some of those, but in Nigeria, in your talks that you've been having with the Nigerian government, what has been the stumbling block here? It's been 2 months. You've mentioned in the press conferences earlier that, of course, in South Africa, in a week, we've buried our loved ones. And what explanation is there planned to give to these families who feel that this should not have taken so long?
Let's cast our eyes back on the tragic day of the 12th of September. All of us saw that video clip when that building collapsed. So you can imagine that first and foremost, there has to be a rescue mission by the Nigerian authorities in order to get to the deceased and to the injured. That took a long time. And also the climatic conditions of Nigeria as well. That's why we have being advised by our medical experts to the families that in our view, families should be very cautious in viewing the bodies, because medical officers, they know what happened on that day. So we are really pleading that let's have this process as dignified as possible so that we can really bring closure. But what we can be certain about is that all those 74 that are coming here, they've been positively identified to be South Africans.
Minister, of course, the 74 are coming back today, but, what are relations like between South Africa and Nigeria? Is there any strain on the relationship pertaining to what has happened? Yes, there were laws that needed to be abided to, and much speculation that there might be some bad blood due to all these delays.
Not at all. Actually, South Africa and Nigeria, they have excellent relationship, and that relationship doesn't start now in 2014. During the struggle against the system of apartheid, Nigeria was at the forefront in supporting our country, South Africa, in defeating the system of apartheid. Every Nigerian had even to contribute financially to that struggle. Now that both countries are free, and Nigeria being the biggest economy in Africa and South Africa being the big one in the southern tip of the African continent, we have a binational commission that reflects the strong relationship that exists between our two countries. There are many South African companies that operate in Nigeria: MTN, Stanbic, ShopRite, you name them, more than 100. And also there are many Nigerian companies that do business in our country. For an example, Dangote Cement. Mr. Dangote is the single biggest foreign investor in our country today, who's building a multi-billion rand cement factory in Lichtenberg in Northwest. So what we need to ensure is now to expand these relations, especially economic relations, so that we can take this continent into the next level of economic growth and job creation, especially for the youth of this nation.
Minister, you also visited the site of the building collapse. Let me get your personal view. What was it like for you visiting, seeing all that devastation and destruction?
That was a deadly blow to me. I cast my eyes again and I feel for the families of the deceased to see that rubble, that those who survived, I think they must thank their lucky stars indeed. What I saw there is beyond words.
Minister, what happens next? Is there any indication about the remainder of the bodies who are still in Nigeria, when perhaps they might be repatriated as well?
The process has not ended. Even when we left, the laboratory in Cape Town, in Stellenbosch, is still processing the DNA samples. As soon as we get confirmation, we'll be able to inform the families of the 11 remaining South Africans.
Minister in the Presidency, Jeff Radebe, thank you very much for your time there, sir. Certainly, many South Africans will say a job well done there, that finally these 74 bodies, not all of them, of course, returning to South Africa today, but the Minister in the Presidency certainly saying there that work does continue in Nigeria, and of course, as soon as that identification process has been complete, those bodies will also return to South Africa. Let's take a short break here on Morning Live. We'll be back with you straight after this. Mister, thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Ngadi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Ayibasuka ngapha bayonceda ngani. Siyobabuya. Yeah, I never looked at the
camera ngibonana nawe futhi. Ukhela no Nox. Oh no, always the white balance.
Huh? Ayenze ngala ilangeni phela.
Yembathi.
Ha?
Wenze white balance wale.
Anyakaza. Anyakaza ngempela. Sure. Thank you.
Tabo? We can organize that quickly. I'll take you there right now. Tabo? Tabo, come in. Okay, sure.
You must run. Come on, the car. Hey, Mama. Do to lean.
Hello, Henny. She's still there in the van. Oh, okay. No, I can't see her. Oh, yeah, she's coming now.
Mzondile. Ibu camera through, camera bale. Le. Fole. Okay, thank you.
Mampumla, you can come this way, please. Where should Mampumla stand? Is it fine there?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then when you want me to move, guys, we are ready. Let's go on this one. Okay, camera's still moving around. Few seconds, please. Few seconds, please. Which one? Thank you. Okay, Mampumla, could you have a look at me straight? Okay. Thank you. Are you happy with that? The 74 South Africans is expected to touch down here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base at 9:30 this morning, but certainly lots of emotions from the repatriation teams who've been working tirelessly to make sure that this does happen. Nigeria working, or South Africa working together with Nigeria to talk a bit about that. And someone who's been there from the very beginning of this process is Well, certainly those heroes and heroines who disembarked from that second flight from Lagos in Nigeria, who've been part of the repatriation process since the beginning. Certainly a very tired bunch here, but a job well done, certainly to all of them. You would expect such a great or such a huge responsibility on the South African government, of course, to get all those South Africans back here on home soil. But of course, as you've been saying, Ayanda, 74 of them will land here today. And of course, the identification process of the remainder in Nigeria will continue, as we heard from the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, a bit earlier on. But of course, you'd ask yourself, what really goes through such a huge responsibility? The many people who work behind the scenes to ensure that what is going to happen here today to bring closure to these families, who makes that happen, and the emotions that they go through. Someone who's been there since the very beginning is the spokesperson of the interministerial task team, of course, that facilitated this repatriation process, and also the acting CEO of the government communications, Mpumla Williams. Thank you so much for your time. Mpumla, you've been there since the beginning. You were telling me just off air how exhausted you are, but certainly a job well done. The 74 South Africans are coming home today. What has it been like since the beginning?
Thank you very much, Griselda. Yes, we are exhausted, but I think full of excitement. You know, it's one of those tasks that was given to us where you can't help to feel proud of being a South African, but importantly, of being a public servant. I think I have been in this project from the beginning, from the moment the president made the announcement. The team that was put together from the interministerial, the ministers, their dedication to the whole project, the leadership they provided, but importantly, the operational team that was meeting at NEJoint in Pretoria. They were meeting daily and making sure in a most disciplined way, and the commitment that was coming out there for me comes out and saying that it is okay in the public service. We moved to Nigeria. I think a smaller team or a medium team moved to Nigeria 2 weeks ago. That dedication for me comes out also. We were meeting on a daily basis, twice a day. The discipline of each and every one of us who was given a task, and making sure that when you report back in the afternoon, you've done the task you were given. And I think that for me has made this project a reality. But I think also it was full of some emotions, because I think some of us who were in Nigeria, I think it starts hitting you when you go to those mortuaries and you start seeing those bodies, and you realize this is somebody's wife, this is somebody's son, and it just hits you that you know, I am doing a most important project for this country, that somebody is going to be getting the remains of their loved ones to go and put them in their ancestral place. Because I think for us as South Africans, you don't get peace, inner peace, if you don't get your remains. And I think we just feel so proud that we have done that, and we've made some of our compatriots proud of the job that we have done for them.
It's been hours of work and no sleep, certainly. These teams, we understand you're working together with some Nigerian counterparts as well. What was the working relationship like? Was it seamless at all? And how were they getting by day to day? It was emotional for you, but certainly emotional. We saw a bunch of tired heroes and heroines getting off that second flight that here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base.
We worked with the Nigerian smaller team, but I think I want to say that the bulk of the work that happened in the last 2 weeks is the South African team that was working there. The matching, the doing of coordinating, of confirmation of those bodies. There is a South African medical team. I think we should give credit to the medical team from the South African that was working, yes, with the Nigerians. But I think the dedication that comes with the team that was working, there was no way that Nigerians couldn't come to the party, because they soon realized that we mean business. We are here to come and collect our compatriots, and I think they didn't have any option. They had to come to the party. So I think for me, the climax was yesterday when the team that came, and I think for me, when they came, at the back of my mind, I was thinking to myself, do they really have an idea what they are going to do? Are they going to survive? Are they going to pull it through? Because of some of the stuff that I saw there, And they did it, and on record time, at their expected time, they were expected to have been back by 7 o'clock in the evening. It was mission accomplished, and I think it was an incredible task that was done by these soldiers and the teams that came together to come and collect the remains. So I think for me, yes, we've pulled it through. We are exhausted, but I think it's a job that we are proud to have done for South Africa and for these families.
What was it like seeing the devastation? We've seen it on television, and certainly the SABC has had a crew there as well. But, walking through the devastation, I did see some of the visuals. You were walking there with the minister in the presidency, with another delegation as well. He did put to us that it was devastating for him. It blew him away. For you, what was it like seeing all that rubble and how these mothers and these fathers that you speak of died so tragically?
When I got there, for me, that term that we kept saying, they died a gruesome death. That's basically what it is. Here is a human being who left South Africa to come and get spiritual healing, and gets there to die in the manner in which they died. I think for me it's a sad thing, and I hope that the Nigerian government, in their inquest, they will assist in trying to establish what went wrong, because I think it's just gruesome, the manner in which people died in that accident.
Right, thank you very much for your time there, Mampumla Williams, the spokesperson for the Interministerial Task Team, of course, that was set up, getting to this point here today where we see those 74 South Africans who will be repatriated. So much relief we're expecting to hear from the families, a sense of hope that they'll get to finally bury their loved ones and, of course, get some closure in this horrific matter that has really plagued many South Africans as well. Let's go to Sam Marshall and Ayanda Alipay now, who are in Johannesburg. Back to you guys. Okay, maybe we just say what and when the broadcast will continue as well. Just say the broadcaster also will be doing crossings throughout the day. We can say Brapol, and then we'll also say there's also a broadcast at 3 o'clock. I guess that's the way we can get into it. It's after 9, isn't it? Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, fine. No problem. You'll do it. You'll do a Q&A.
Ay bashi trouble ukudla ke manje.
Hey. Akuna next that side, ikitare.
Bathi bavuka ungene la manje baso
Comrades, take your positions, please. But Paul says he's going to spank you all. Come on. What is on Shire Manch? Sagude phambili madoda. You can't be tired now. Sagude phambili. Crossing nje. Huh? Okay. We are live, we are live. Hey, Propol, you must stand here with conviction. Yes, you must stand here with conviction. Hey, where are you zooming? Where's your camera? Where's your lens? Where's your lens? Yeah. Hey, akusashisi way. Sorry, Nana, I keep moving. Well, a very good morning to you, Alicia. Certainly a very important day for South Africa. A very sad day in the country, of course, those 74 bodies that will be repatriated. We're expecting them to arrive here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base at about 9:30 this morning. Certainly going to give a lot of closure to these families who've waited for more than 2 months for their family members to return to South Africa, and for them to give them a burial and find some closure relating to this disaster that took place in Nigeria. Well, earlier this morning, we saw the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, was the first person to arrive, and much later after that, a second aircraft carrying the mass repatriation team that assisted with the repatriation of the 70 bodies, which will arrive here. Very exhausted bunch, I must tell you, but certainly saying a job well worth it, and that bringing closure to these families is certainly what is most important in this case. What will take place here today, as soon as that aircraft lands at about 9:30, we're expecting the 4 mortuary trucks, of course, to come off that aircraft and basically to be placed in a hangar, in a closed storage, where, of course, all the processes relating to health as well will need to take place. And, of course, at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, the official ceremony, of course, presided over by the Deputy President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, who will, together with families here, families certainly we will get to see for the very first time, where they will share in their grief over what happened in Nigeria. They will be certainly quite difficult for them to see those mortuary vans. As we understand, there's also a dead march that will take place within this area as well. Certainly difficult. We don't think that there will be, in fact, there will not be a viewing of those bodies. We understand the Minister of Social Development, Batabile Dlamini, who spoke to the SABC a bit earlier, said she had explained to the families in a meeting that she had with them yesterday. She went on to describe their grief as well, saying that certainly, counselling would need to take place way after the ceremony is done, in that these families have waited for so long to bury their loved ones. But the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, saying that it was also difficult for him when he visited the site of that building collapse, saying that it touched him personally. And we've heard from many of the other team members as well of this mass repatriation team that were in Nigeria, saying it was quite emotional to be there, to see somebody's mother, to see somebody's father in that condition, but certainly will add to closure today for South Africa and the families, of course, when those bodies do touch down at about 9:30 here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Well, that's correct, Alicia. That's the expected time that we've been given here at the Air Force Base. Thanks, guys. Wrap for now. Guys, did you get that?
And at that time, I didn't go on traveling these countries in Oh, my friends, my viewer, my pioneers. Stay on that side, no. Money, I'm done. How many money? How much? Ayo mo boxing.
Iya, itu enak kinto. Aku jual taksi.
Hurry up!
The arrival of those 70 bodies after 2 months of agonizing wait by the families and the friends, the loved ones of the South Africans who perished in that Nigerian guest house church building collapse. The plane, as you can see, was expected to touch down at about 9:30. Certainly that is the cargo plane carrying, of course, the 4 mortuary vans that are on board that cargo plane, as well as 4 vans as well with equipment. Now, what's expected to happen here once the plane has come to a standstill, Alicia, is that here behind me, if I can ask the camera person just to pan towards that direction, this is called a hangar, and that's basically where aircraft are stored. Those mortuary vans will be placed into that hangar for several hours, and of course you would know that at 3 o'clock this afternoon there will be an official ceremony presided over by the Deputy President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, who will of course have an official a ceremony here together with the families who have been invited here, the families of the victims who will for the very first time see, not directly of course, because there will not be a viewing of the bodies, but certainly seeing those mortuary vans will evoke some kind of emotion from those family members. Certainly after a 2-month wait, the South African government says it has been a job well done. There were many challenges relating to the repatriation of these bodies, the Nigerian laws that needed to be adhered to, and various processes, of course. The time that it took for the rescue operation to take place in Nigeria before South Africa, of course, could go in and begin with the repatriation process. Just to walk you through a bit what is expected this afternoon, Alicia, in terms of the program, we're expecting the national anthem first of all, a rendition of that, and there'll be an opening prayer by the South African Police Service chaplain, as well as welcoming remarks by Minister Radebe and the Deputy President, of course, Cyril Ramaphosa. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi is also here as well, the Health Minister, as well as Bathabile Dlamini, who is the Social Development Minister as well. They've been here since this morning, indicating that, the repatriation is just but the beginning of where this phase is. There are many more processes that need to be followed. For example, the children who no longer have parents, whose parents have perhaps perished in this disaster, that the Department of Social Development will look into getting foster care for the children who've been affected by this, and continuing, of course, counseling for these families. Many people handle grief differently, so when that does happen, certainly the social workers will also be sent to the various provinces. As you would know, that just but one of the provinces has not been affected by this disaster, so the provincial officers of the Social Development Department quite have a lot on their hands from this point moving forward as well. But certainly a proud moment for South Africa, in grief though that so many people have perished while they were going to a place of worship looking for spiritual intervention, and to die in such a tragic manner. But of course, these families saying, finally this has happened. We've spoken to them so many times, Alicia, if I could tell you, dating back to when we spoke to many of the family members who waited at the OR Tambo International Airport, braving early mornings at 5 a.m., waiting, not knowing, before the list had been released about who these South Africans were. I understand as well a list will be read out here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base of the victims of this tragedy in Nigeria, and an acknowledgement, of course. And one has to say, you know, with such a difficult task on their hands, the many people who participated behind the scenes, the health workers, the DNA specialists, who have all worked around the clock, as we understand, to make this happen, in conjunction, of course, with the Nigerian government, who, of course, gave the go-ahead just a few days ago to the South African government to repatriate. Of course, those that remain, we know that 74 bodies will come off that cargo plane, but the remainder of the bodies that are in Nigeria, the identification process needs to continue. And basically what a government is saying is that once all of that has come to a close, certainly those bodies will be repatriated as well. All of that communication, we understand, has been given to the families who will not be receiving their loved ones here today. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult for them to continue to wait, of course, but they might be given quite a lot of hope from that, in that they're seeing that these bodies have returned here to South Africa. I'm actually just going to turn a bit towards this direction. I think the plane is going to move a bit closer to where we are broadcasting from. It's coming up on the runway there. It has already landed, and quite a number of army officials here as well. Many from the South African armed forces as well, and basically all here to say that, you know, South Africa, even though difficult, while there were many challenges in getting those bodies back to South Africa, finally all of that has arrived as well. But we'll continue to bring you more here from the Waterkloof Air Force Base as we receive the families as well. A bit later on, we understand they're going to arrive here shortly after 1 o'clock, but we'll take a short break at the moment, or rather before we do that, let's just continue with our broadcast here. As you can see, there you have it, just a few kilometers from where we are, the cargo plane carrying the bodies of those 74 South Africans on board just that aircraft. 4 mortuary vans carrying the remains of the South Africans that perished in that disaster, and also another 4 trucks with the equipment that was used in the repatriation process. I'm sure from the loved ones who might be watching this on television at this stage, it must be quite difficult for them to imagine what will take place here today. An official ceremony, of course, will get underway, and we see the aircraft moving a lot towards the hangar here, where the mortuary vans will drive into and will be kept until 3 o'clock this afternoon, of course, when that ceremony gets underway. Well, you must recall that there's also been quite staunch criticism over the disaster in Nigeria. We heard a bit earlier on today some of the teams that came off from the area aircraft saying that South Africa, of course, does need answers about what happened there, but there's been condemnation in Nigeria as well. You recall from the general manager at the Lagos State Building Control Agency, who basically faulted TB Joshua's church for not getting the correct structural approvals for that guest house, and basically saying that there was only approval to have 3 stories built there, yet it had about 5 at the time of the collapse. You'd know that TB Joshua's followers across the world refer to him as the prophet or the man of God. Thousands of people from all over the world visit his church to seek counsel, to be healed, to be exorcised of demons, and to receive miracles, and to have basically their future foretold. So basically what South Africa is saying here is that they need answers about what exactly happened in Nigeria. A bit earlier on when we spoke to the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, who facilitated this repatriation process, of course, saying that answers are also needed from the Nigerian government. There is no bad blood between the two countries over this massive delay in the repatriation, but Nigeria too did play its role in ensuring and was committed to ensuring that those bodies did reach South Africa. Well, not according to our knowledge at this stage, Alicia. It's believed that none of the members or senior members of the synagogue are with this delegation here at this stage. It's a very closed reception that we're having here. Very few people have been allowed to enter the Waterkloof Air Force Base. It's just basically essential members of government who facilitated the repatriation process. Very few ministers as well have arrived at this stage. We only spoke to Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi a bit earlier on, the health minister, as well as Batabile Dlamini, the social development minister, but not much in terms of movement here. I think also in part to ensure that this is a dignified ceremony there, Alicia, and also to ensure that the indignity that has suffered so far of these bodies remaining on foreign soil for so long, all of that is rectified. We've been consistently hearing government saying that they want to ensure that dignity is restored, that the families of these loved ones are respected, and that this is supposed to be carried out like the tragedy that it is, the tragedy of so many South Africans dying in a place of worship, where in actual fact they'd gone to seek spiritual healing and for many other reasons why they were there, but it all ended in tragedy, certainly. Many questions, of course, Alicia, still need to be answered about what really happened on that day, but you'll know that the church is maintaining that there were other sinister forces behind the collapse of that building. Well, the South African team had been working, Alicia, very closely with a very small team, we understand, in Nigeria, assisting the South African mass repatriation team that consisted of DNA experts from as well as members from the health sector, from the South African Army's health wing as well, to assist in all of this. But no representatives at this stage from that repatriation team, the Nigerian repatriation team, of course. All that we've seen is really a bunch of exhausted heroes and heroines who returned on the second flight much earlier this morning, of course, from several days of not sleeping, we understand, who have been assisting with the repatriation process. And, quite a feat, I must say, for them, in that they're saying it's something they needed to do for their country. And even though the task was quite difficult, Alicia, finally a positive a response to it all, in that 74 of these South Africans have just touched down here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base on a day that we're really expecting to be so emotional. This is for the very first time, Alicia, that these families will get to see, well, not their loved ones, but of course the mortuary vans carrying mothers, fathers, sons, husbands and wives who are part of the people who are in this aircraft. So it's really going to be quite difficult. From here, of course, those bodies will go to the various mortuaries, and we know that the South African government has said that they would not advise for any of these families to do any body viewing because of the state of these bodies. It's been 2 months, and we understand due to somewhat poor conditions of state mortuaries in Nigeria, the bodies are really in a very decomposed state. So it would add further trauma to these families that have already suffered so much. Thank you. Oh, no, I won't go. Right here. Cool. Oh, great. Thanks. I don't think we're allowed to be there. Yeah. Thanks a lot, though. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for decontamination? Okay. If you guys are ready, I've got extensive background. Okay. Can I do commentary? Okay, I'll do commentary. Cool. Well, thank you very much to you once again, Alicia, and the aircraft is still parked right in front of us here. You'd know, of course, due to the fact that it would be quite insensitive for our cameras to be towards the part where those mortuary vans are going to come off. You know, we are expecting the mortuary vans to come off that aircraft anytime soon, and the aircraft itself will be cleaned. A decontamination process, of course, will take place as well. Those mortuary vans will, of course, go into the hangar where they will remain there until the official program starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon. But just to give you a bit of a background about, you know, what happened, where is this church, where was this church formed and when? Now, the Synagogue Church of All Nations was formed in 1987 after a small gathering of about 8 members came together to hold a meeting in a shelter in Lagos in Nigeria. Now, the church was first held in a makeshift congregation iron and thatch building, and has grown, as you would know, that thousands of people. And you'd know that after the collapse of this, there's already been from South Africa, according to some of the members that spoke to my colleague a little bit earlier on, Ayanda Ali Peng, said there have been 8,000 applications to go back to Nigeria to this church. But this church has grown and is now housed in a massive multi-story building, and it has several guest houses, of course, that being one of those that collapsed on that day. Now, these guest houses are actually attached to this multi-story building, which is the church. Now, these are also used to accommodate international visitors. And every year, the Synagogue Church of All Nations hosts thousands of national and international visitors in its headquarters. Now, the roof of this church, just to give you some background, was blown off by a storm, and the second church was washed away by a flood, while the third church also collapsed due to severe weather conditions. And certainly what will take the spotlight after all of this is what really happened on that day. More investigations need to take place into what happened on that fateful day. Why did that multiple story building collapse? And certainly some of the structural experts that we have spoken to have really criticized the church for saying that despite the church being very influential, not just on the continent but around the world, you'd know that local and international visitors frequent the church, that they didn't take the necessary procedures to ensure that the structure itself was safe for all of those people inside, and that the guest houses that are attached to this church are in a proper condition. Certainly lots of condemnation has come for the church members there also, but for now we are expecting these mortuary vans to go inside the hangar. That's where they will remain for the next few hours. We're expecting the families of those loved ones to come here at about after 12, shortly before 1 o'clock, in what's expected to be such an emotionally charged ceremony for the very first time after 2 months. Such grave difficulty, not knowing what will happen next for their loved ones, that today finally there will be some closure. We're also expecting the Deputy President of the country, of course, to grieve with these family members, and of course to give them some assurance that the South African government will repatriate the remainder of the bodies that are in Nigeria, and that there should be some answers to what really happened there. We're expecting the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, to preside over that. So there'll also be a dead march that will take place here, Alicia. A dead march in which the mortuary vans will drive around a particular area. The relatives of those victims, of course, will look on as that dead march is taking place. But, of course, all of that will take place at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. But emotionally charged, and really South Africans saying it's been too long. But finally, something has happened. The South Africans, at least not all of them, but majority of them, are home. But there certainly need to be answers about what really happened in this disaster, considered to be really one of the worst disasters to ever affect a place of worship. But there's not much from where I can see from where I'm standing at the moment, Alicia. But certainly what is taking place on the other end there is the fact that the mortuary vans will then now be removed from there. And what will happen at a much later stage, of course, is that once these bodies have been taken to the various state mortuaries around the country, the places or the homes of the victims of this disaster, of course, private funerals will be arranged by these individual families who will bid their loved ones a farewell. Certainly something they've been waiting too long to happen. Well, Alicia, certainly I did put that question to the Minister in the Presidency, Jeff Radebe, when he arrived here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base this morning. And what he says is that the identification process still needs to take place for the remaining bodies in Lagos in Nigeria. But certainly what they're trying to make sure is that they are properly identified and that they're 100% sure that those are the South Africans that were involved in that Lagos disaster. And certainly, I mean, you would want that to take place before you find yourself in a situation where the wrong bodies are being repatriated to South Africa. So quite understandable in that sense as to when that will actually take place. The minister was not able to answer that at this stage. As he says, the process is still going on, that identification must still happen, and I'm sure as soon as that is done, further communication will take place, and it will be known when the remainder of those bodies. But it's certainly a bitter pill to swallow for some of these families in that they've been waiting for more than 2 months at the moment, and clearly there's going to have to be another wait at this stage. But certainly there would be some assurances, I would think, from the Deputy President of the country this morning to say to these families it's going to be a bit of a wait. I know that communication has already gone out to the families who will not be receiving bodies here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base here this morning or into this afternoon as well. But a sense of anxiety is what we understand from when the Social Development Minister had visited the family members who are housed in different hotels here in the Gauteng province, and many of them raising questions about what happens next. How does government plan to help them next? What about the children of some of the families who've now been left alone? There are no parents left in those homes, but government is saying that their job goes way beyond what will be taking place here today. It started with the repatriation, now an official ceremony to release these bodies to their families, and afterwards a lot of work still needs to be done as well. But the concern that is also being raised is about the increased somewhat demand by some South Africans, despite the disaster that happened in Nigeria, to return to the church. What you'll actually know is that just a few days after that disaster as well, we saw some people that SABC News had actually interviewed who wanted to go back to the church in Nigeria, saying they feel they need to go back there to find answers and also to pray over what exactly has happened. So really a lot of scrutiny will be placed on TB Joshua's church and what happens next, and where to for these families as they bury their loved ones after waiting such a long time, a grief of 2 months. People that we've spoken to, some of the families, saying that they don't know where to go to from now. It was supposed to be a prayer that they were attending for good health, for various things that people would attend the church for, to be exorcised of demons and a host of things, for spiritual cleansing at TB Joshua's church. But it was a day of tragedy, so many South Africans dying. We also saw President Jacob Zuma sending his condolences, of course, to the families, saying this is quite a disaster of great magnitude, and condolences, of course, sent to those families. But that's what we're expecting to take place here today, and there will be quite a break. We will not be able to broadcast, of course, what will take place inside that hangar for obvious reasons, and that there needs to be some dignity away from the cameras, and that the decontamination and the removal of those bodies, of course, we certainly cannot bring you those broadcasts. But of course we will be live again from 2:30 this afternoon when the official program, prayer session as well, presided over by the Deputy President, will get underway. But a very somber mood here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base, but also quite a lot of relief. I understand from government officials who are saying that it was so important for them not to return empty-handed to South Africa. What do you tell families that have been grieving for so long? What do you say after having gone to Nigeria with such a massive team to facilitate the repatriation process? Many challenges that the South African government had to put up with. We've heard a lot as well from the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, who had given several press conferences about the updates about how many South Africans were going to return. Only confirmed very late last night, I must say, Alicia, that it would now be 74 of those being repatriated. If you've just joined us here on SABC News, we're coming to you live from the Waterkloof Air Force Base, where 74 bodies of South Africans who perished in the Nigerian building collapse have touched down here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Well, thank you very much to you once again, Alicia, live from the Waterkloof Air Force Base, where the bodies of the 74 South Africans who were repatriated from Lagos in Nigeria have finally arrived. Hope, relief, and certainly a day that the families of these South Africans have been waiting for the past 2 months now, wanting to bury their loved ones in dignity as well. I'm sure you can see there on your screen the aircraft itself getting some of, or waiting rather, for these mortuary vans to come off that plane. Just to indicate, what demand there has been to attend church services in Nigeria at the Synagogue of All Nations. At the time of this disaster, there were more than 300 South Africans attending the church service there. Okay, Timan, yeah, I can see now I can see the monitor. Now this thing is opening. The aircraft. Okay, standing by. I'm doing commentary. Thank you very much once again, Alicia. The visuals that you're seeing on your screen are live from the Waterkloof Air Force Base. You can see the aircraft, the back of the aircraft there opening, and I'm sure in just a few minutes we will see those 4 mortuary vans with the remains of the 74 South Africans coming off there. You can see some of the personnel assisting there before those vehicles do come out. There are, of course, 4 other vehicles that are inside that aircraft. Inside the 4 other trucks, so you have equipment that was used in the repatriation process. But to explain just a bit about how even more devastating this disaster could have been in terms of the effects at the time of this disaster, there were more than 300 South Africans who were at the Synagogue Church of All Nations. A demand from South Africans who often go for spiritual healing to TB Joshua's church, and a very prominent church. Some of the people who, well-known personalities and politicians who have visited this church before would include your King Goodwill Zwelithini, the king of the Zulu nation. Winnie Madikizela Mandela has been to the church as well. The leader of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema, as well as the South African gospel star, Sechaba Padi. Depoor Peters as well, the Minister of Transport, is also one of the people who has visited that church. So the devastation certainly could have been so much more with the numbers of South Africans who were at the church. I'm sure in the next few minutes we will see those mortuary vans come out from this aircraft here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base there. And certainly something that will bring great relief to these families who've been waiting for so long. As we've been indicating, Alicia, we can't stress that enough, in that the families that we have spoken to, many have waited for months, and in the run-up to when the South African government had communicated that it will be repatriating these bodies, the interviews that we often did with these family members saying that all they want is some kind of closure. And you could see the devastation in the very beginning when flights came through from OR Tambo International Airport, and the flights would disembark, and none of the loved ones of some of these individuals who will be here today to grieve their family members, were not on those aircraft. They're on an aircraft of a different kind here this morning, an aircraft in a mortuary van, certainly badly decomposed, we understand, in that, but the closure that these families will get from this moving forward is that their loved ones are finally back home. And certainly these families would want to know, moving forward, what government's plans, of course, would be moving forward in this regard. I'm just going to take a look at our monitor just to monitor what's happening there as well. But certainly, these families who will come here today will be for the very first time able to feel this pain of their loved ones returning in body bags, not exactly the way that they had wanted things to be, in that obviously anybody who's going to attend a church service, you go there for spiritual healing and a host of other reasons. But these families returning here now, very difficult. But, the South African government saying that it's been quite a difficult task for this repatriation process. We've asked questions relating to whether South Africa and Nigeria are on good terms, in particular at this stage over the delay of this repatriation. I mean, the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, has often said that this pain is indescribable that these family members are experiencing. So it's important for this process, of course, to take place here today. The ceremony this afternoon will start with a rendition of the national anthem. The deputy president, of course, is going to be here. The families will also be here as well. A dead march will take place, but for now, as those mortuary vans disembark, they will go into the hangar where they will remain for the next a couple of hours for the ceremony to take place. But definitely going to be quite an emotional one for these families and indeed for the whole country, because many of these, that's just a shot of the hangar that we wanted to show you. That's the hangar or the closed structure where these mortuary vans will go into. The decontamination process will take place there. Of course, the health department has been quite involved in this repatriation, in that, of course, issues relating to death certificates as well that needs to be issued to these families, where these bodies will go after the ceremony is done here this afternoon. They need to be taken to the various provinces in order for these families to make arrangements for the various funerals of these 74 people. But as to when the remainder of the South Africans will return, certainly that remains to be seen, and certainly government will communicate that at a later stage, but the identification process of that certainly does continue. But, speaking about the church, the Synagogue Church of All Nations, relating to TB Joshua, and across the world, people are said to be attracted by his purported healing powers and prophecies. He preaches to massive crowds at this mega church in Ikotun. That's where the church is based, every week. And according to the website, the Scone website, the Synagogue Church of All Nations website, it hosts thousands of national and international visitors each year. People travel from around the world to witness and receive from the mighty work that God is doing in the life of a prophet TB Joshua. Of course, all of that stated, on the website of TB Joshua's church. And on the 16th of September in 2014, on TB Joshua's Facebook page, there was something that was posted on there, reportedly coming from him, that indicated that these were hard times that may test him, but they cannot destroy him. I suppose responding to much of the criticism as well that he's received, not only from South Africa, around the world, also from other South African pastors as well. We know that Pastor Ray McCauley of the Rema Bible Church, believed that Joshua, did not show accountability. That's what he was basically saying. TB Joshua was one of those who was scathing against TB Joshua. Ray McCauley, that is, rather, saying that he believed that Joshua did not show accountability for the disaster, and basically saying that TB Joshua should fully cooperate with authorities in investigating the tragedy. Pastor Nala as well, who's a popular KwaZulu-Natal pastor, or the Nala Mandate International, defended TB Joshua. He believed that the Synagogue Church of All Nations tragedy was unfortunate, and that, since no pastor would wake up and wish that any disaster like that could happen to members of their families. But certainly a day of high emotion expected here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. The families of these loved ones in the next few hours will come here, and for the very first time, that pain is expected to be quite piercing, in that this day has finally come. A day of closure is what these families are seeking. This is the first phase of healing for these families whose loved ones had simply gone to a church service and it all ended in disaster. Taba, I can't hear. Oh, Tabo? The delay is Nosivuyo Mapisa Ngakula. She's at the gate at the moment, so they were waiting for her to arrive. Yeah. Yes, she Akiri. They've just sped off to go and fetch her now. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Yes, I did. I just received them now. Loud and clear, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dumelo. On a day where emotions are expected to run high here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base, of course, 74 South Africans touching down, finally home, finally here for their loved ones to send them off in a decent burial. We understand the process at the moment has been slightly delayed. We're expecting those 4 mortuary vans to be offloaded from the cargo aircraft that arrived just a little bit earlier on. Of course, 4 cargo aircraft are on there. I beg your pardon, 4 of the mortuary vans are in that cargo aircraft, as well as I see one of the ministers. If I could ask my colleague to just pan towards that direction. I think the Minister of Defence has just arrived. Let me just turn towards this direction. The cars that you're seeing here behind me, that's what the delay has been. The Minister of Defence has just arrived. We understand that the mortuary vans will be offloaded once she has arrived, not too far from where we are broadcasting here at the moment, but certainly to add to the dignity of restoring, the dignity of these 74 South Africans, to ensure that their send-off is dignified. I can tell you about the mood here as well, Tumelo. There are not too many people inside the Waterkloof Air Force Base, essential staff, everybody standing towards different ends, essential staff to try and ensure that there's dignity around this final send-off of these 74 South Africans. Of course, more work still needs to be done by government in the repatriation of the remaining bodies in Lagos in Nigeria. The identification process is still continuing there. But 349 South Africans, we must remember, were in Lagos attending that church service at the Synagogue Church of All Nations by TB Joshua. Certainly quite a demand, not only locally as well as internationally, to go and listen to TB Joshua administer. He's taken significant criticism over what happened in Nigeria. Several structural experts whom we have spoken to certainly saying that due process was not followed and that the church needs to account for so many deaths at the guest house of the Church of All Nations. Now, these guest houses are attached to the Synagogue Church of All Nations. So what you will have is a situation where there are several guest houses that will house people who often go for days to Nigeria to go and attend a church service with TB Joshua. But the Defence Minister, I understand, is going to arrive at just near where the aircraft has been opened. You can see that visual on your screen. That's where the 4 mortuary trucks will emerge from and will be taken to a hangar, a closed structure that keeps aircraft. That's where they will stay for the official ceremony, which is expected to get underway at 3 o'clock, this afternoon, presided, of course, by the Deputy President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa. But it's been 2 months of agony, Tumelo, not just for these families, but for government. We know what a frustrating phase it has been for government as well. They had to adhere to various laws in Nigeria and also to ensure that processes were followed and these bodies were repatriated with dignity. The South African government says it's been quite a challenge, but the Nigerian government did come to the party. Nigeria's president also expressed his concern about ensuring that these bodies are repatriated and repatriated as soon as possible. You would recall that the minister in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, who was the special envoy to Nigeria, was appointed by President Jacob Zuma to fast-track this process, which had become frustrating, certainly for the South African government and for these families who had consistently been crying out for help from government and asking when their loved ones were going to return to the country. But from here, those bodies will go to mortuaries in various parts of the countries, and then the families, of course, will then take over and have their own private funerals for these 74 South Africans who have perished. But really, what we were expecting is such emotion, maybe closure, the beginning of closure. One can't really say closure to such a degree because some of the families are still waiting for their loved ones to return home. We understand there's been a communication as well. Just let me bring you up to speed now about what is taking place. We're expecting these mortuary vans to come out any minute now. We see a crane there on the monitor as well, bringing out some of what looks to be some drums, some blue drums that are coming out from the aircraft at this point. You know, of course, that TB Joshua is also being saying that the collapse of his church building, is owed to a small plane that was seen flying overhead shortly before the building fell. The church had claimed sabotage for the collapse that released a CCTV footage which appeared to show a small plane flying over the building before the building fell. And, some of the South Africans, of course, survivors who have come back, who the SABC has spoken to, are giving credence to that claim, saying that they saw this aircraft that had been hovering just above the church a few minutes before it had actually collapsed. But among the 87 team members, of this mass body repatriation team that returned just before this aircraft had landed. Included, a command element to control the entire operation that has been taking place. Also, victim identification specialists, as well as a chaplain that would accompany the bodies. The chaplain who we understand arrived also this morning. When we spoke to the Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, environmental health officers, were to supervise control measures and also to protect staff and to ensure the adherence to port health regulations. Also, forensic pathology officers from various provinces also managed the bodies and prepared them for this repatriation that we're seeing here today. It also comprised of the South African Police Service, warrant officers who were there to coordinate, actions at the mortuaries. And of course, operational emergency care practitioners that, will execute these decontamination procedures, of course, to make sure that there are no diseases that come with the bodies, and the support staff, of course, that had been in the country. Now, at the end of the formal reception ceremony, these mortal remains will be transported, of course, by road to the closest government forensic pathology services mortuaries in these different provinces, as I indicated there, Tumelo. And then from there, those mortal remains will be transported to government mortuaries closest to the place of burial, where they will be received by their next of kin. And individual families, of course, will proceed with their own private funeral arrangements. I know that the Department of Health will guide, the family-appointed private funeral directors on how to manage the remains in line with these relevant health protocols. But of course, once again, out of concern for secondary trauma, for example, to these families, as well as public health considerations, families were discouraged from viewing these mortal remains. We understand that there'd been quite an unhappiness relating to that by the families. According to culture, many people want to see for the last time their loved ones before they bury them. But in this case, government has strongly said that shouldn't happen. And I think, of course, relating to the state of how decomposed these bodies are. Of course, 2 months, just over 2 months, in what we understand to be poor state mortuaries in Nigeria. Certainly the added trauma would not be in the best interest of these loved ones for them to view their bodies. And, certainly it's something else that these families have to deal with, in that the last time you saw your loved one, they were in high spirits, I would presume, going to this church service to go and get spiritual healing or whatever it is they were there to do, to pray perhaps, and to get spiritual cleansing. But then to return in this condition, I think that's what government is also trying to guard against, that the best picture, I guess, that one would want engraved in the minds of these families and the minds of these loved ones is of family members who left to attend a church service, and best that picture remain in their hearts and in their minds. A sad day, certainly, for South Africa. And of course, the unsung heroes and heroines who were part of this repatriation process. The 87 of the experts, health workers, who assisted in the repatriation, also landing just a bit earlier this morning. Now, we understand that these forensic pathology trucks have sufficient capacity, to transport all identified bodies in the right condition. Now, what we know is that when this team had touched down in Lagos, the mass repatriation team, when they touched down, they'd been split up into 3 groups, and each had to work on the preparation of these mortal remains at 3 mortuaries in Lagos. And it had been hours of work, also to provide additional working space for these repatriation teams at these mortuaries. There'd been inflatable air-conditioned tents, for example, from the military health service that were also transported to Nigeria. And also, due to the number of deceased and the time period that had lapsed since the incident, the repatriation was carried out in line with strict procedure to ensure that these remains were repatriated in a dignified manner, but also taking into account the necessary appropriate precautions that needed to be taken. Health and safety regulations and procedures also needed to be followed to safeguard the family members as well as staff members against any potential risks, for example. Well, certainly you're still watching live pictures here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Okay. Well, tomorrow we'll bring you a bit more later on as the mortuary trucks will begin being offloaded, this cargo aircraft, bringing hope and some closure to these families. Of course, we'll bring you much more of what's happening here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base when we cross to you a bit later on. We're back to you in studio for now.
Thank you so much, Criselda Lewis. We'll definitely cross back to you at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. And just to keep everyone abreast of what is currently occurring at this moment in South Africa, the remains of the 74 out of 85 victims that fell prey to a Nigerian church building's collapse back in Friday, the 12th of September 2014, have arrived in South Africa at the Pretoria Waterkloof Air Base. Today, on the 16th of November 2014, exactly 2 months and 4 days later. And if just to keep you abreast in case you haven't been watching till now, the remains, of course, had left Saturday, yesterday, and have arrived today. But 11 days after the incident, some of the survivors of the building collapse arrived back home for medical attention in South Africa.
Arrived back home in varying medical conditions 11 days after the tragic incident which claimed 115 lives, 84 of them South Africans. The injured were rushed to Steve Biko Academic Hospital. 11 were operated on overnight. 2 are still in a critical condition. Doctors say the care they received in Nigeria was not satisfactory. There were no x-rays done and their diagnoses were not clear.
The condition that most of them arrive in needed immediate attention. Most of them had broken legs, broken arms, broken backs, and they had to be operated as a matter of urgency.
The injured will stay at Steve Biko Hospital for 2 days before being moved to medical facilities closer to home.
After 48 hours, we will be knowing for sure that it's safe, not only for in as far as the infection is controlled, also with their injuries.
The scars of Lagos will linger, both emotional and physical. Sipho Sterman, SABC News, Pretoria.
Back to Criselda Lewis live at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Criselda.
Thank you very much, Tumelo, once again live from the Waterkloof Air Force Base. We're still waiting for these mortuary vans to be offloaded. That aircraft, of course, carrying the remains of the 74 South Africans who were repatriated today. Well, the process doesn't just stop now. The process, of course, will continue to ensure that the rest of the South Africans who are left in Nigeria are repatriated as soon as possible, of course, to bring closure to those other family members as well who will not be receiving some of those bodies here today. We know that the Defence Minister has also arrived here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. We're really hoping to chat to her just a little bit later on, but just to bring you up to speed about the visuals that you're seeing there, we're expecting any moment now for those mortuary vans to come off that aircraft. What looks to be, from where I am standing at this stage, several boxes that have been taken off the aircraft, together with two as well drums, blue drums that we saw. But certainly we will bring you a lot more later once those mortuary vans are brought off that aircraft. As you can see there, some of the professionals from the health department there in protective clothing as well, to ensure that no disease, of course, is spread here as a result of these bodies that have been repatriated now here to South Africa. We're still awaiting those vans to emerge from this aircraft. Well, we see just one van coming, a military van coming from close to where the entrance of the aircraft is. And as you can see, the exact decontamination that we spoke about earlier, all the health precautions that are expected to be taken, all of that is being done at this stage, just to ensure also the safety of staff members here, as well as family members who are going to attend the official ceremony a bit later on. But it certainly isn't the first time that the Synagogue Church of All Nations structure has been hit by tragedy. In one instance, it went through different phases. Those vehicles as well are being sprayed, being the decontamination process, as we've been speaking out throughout this morning. The necessary health precautions are being taken there to ensure that absolutely no disease is spread as a result of the repatriation of these bodies, and that the families, of course, who will be here later on as well would not catch any disease as well. Certainly the health minister earlier speaking to SABC News saying that they want to ensure that all processes are followed, in that the dignity of these victims of the Synagogue Church of Nations guest house collapse will receive a dignified funeral. You'd also recall that shortly after the collapse of this guest house on the 12th of September in 2014, TB Joshua was really criticized for not prophesying about what had happened there, with people saying that he didn't see this coming, and that, he came out basically and accused, I'm talking about TB Joshua, accusing the Islamic rebel movement Boko Haram for the collapse, and also told his congregants about his plans to visit South Africa to provide comfort to the families of those who lost their lives. Whether that will take place remains to be seen at the stage, but the family has really been aggrieved by what has happened in Nigeria, saying that the TB Joshua is responsible. He should take responsibility for what has happened and at least show some form of sympathy towards these families. Let's just have a look now at what's happening at the aircraft itself. We're still waiting. A lot of decontamination that is taking place there, absolutely, to make sure that all the safety and health precautions are taken before those 4 mortuary trucks do disembark from that aircraft. Well, and there you have it. Just coming through from the aircraft at the moment. One of, I see a forensic pathologist sign there. It's one of the 4 of these trucks that are emerging from this aircraft at the moment. The first one to emerge since the aircraft landed some minutes ago now. And inside, of course, these trucks, this is where the bodies of the 74 South Africans, this is what they have been transported in. The very first of those, I'm sure for family members who might be watching this at home now, certainly very, 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 very difficult. But you could see the stringent measures that have been put in place here this morning to ensure that everything is safe before the trucks do emerge from this aircraft. One of the 4 that will emerge from this aircraft here this morning. The beginning of a healing phase, the beginning of a phase that will bring some sort of closure to these families who have been waiting for more than 2 months now to get some closure relating to their loved ones and to bury them with dignity. Of course, some that we've spoken to have said those preparations are already underway. Of course, they'd been informed by the South African government that their loved ones would be arriving here this morning. And what's expected to be very emotional this afternoon when the Deputy President does preside over this official ceremony. Families who will, for the very first time after 2 months, see their loved one once again. There will not be a body viewing. The government has certainly said they do not think that will be in the best interest at the stage due to the condition of these bodies. The first of the 4 trucks that will now move into the hangar. The hangar, a closed storage where they will be stored, waiting this official ceremony that will take done. They will then move to these various mortuaries and, of course, be sent to the different provinces. There's the second truck that we're seeing emerging there from the aircraft, carrying the bodies of the 74 South Africans. 2 more that we were expecting to come out of that aircraft, but there are another 4 that have equipment that was used in the repatriation. A very complex mission, I understand this has been for the South African government to ensure that the dignity of these South Africans is restored as well. Once one of the trucks comes off the aircraft, you would see then the decontamination taking place. The wheels are being sprayed there before the truck then moves back and before all of them will make their way into the hangar. We'll wait now for the third of the trucks to emerge from that aircraft, but you'll also recall that the church leader, T.B. Joshua, had boycotted the inquest hearing where he was set to testify on the 5th of November in 2014 to give some insight into what had happened at the Synagogue Church of All Nations. Well, his lawyer told the hearing at the time that the prophet didn't receive a summons to testify because he was not available when it was delivered. But certainly that also drew immense criticism from many around the country, saying that the least that the prophet could have done was to show what others termed compassion towards the families of these victims. Guys, this is the third boat. This is the third truck. Welcome back to the Waterkloof Air Force Base, where now the third of the 4 trucks carrying the bodies of the 74 South Africans has now been offloaded from the aircraft that came in here this morning. Certainly someone that would want to speak to relating to this as well, the repatriation process and how difficult it was for South Africa, of course, to reach this phase at the moment. We'll speak now to the Defence Minister, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. Minister, if you could kindly join us at this stage. Well, a very good morning to you, Minister. I think let's start first of all with, defence, that it being a core function in terms of a repatriation of these bodies from one country to another. Certainly must have been quite a difficult feat on your part.
Well, yes, certainly, particularly because even though we repatriated those who were injured and brought them to South Africa, I wasn't in the country at the time, but I was kept informed all the way right up until the time the aircrafts landed in the country. So it has been very, very hectic. But you'll also appreciate that this was a joint effort. This was handled from the National Joint Committee of Government, where you have various stakeholders interacting, such as the police, the South African National Defence Force, health, social development, etc. This is a net joint, which is a structure which is permanently there, so that in the event of whatever needs to be attended to in the country, they quickly come together, plan together, strategize together, and do things together. So it's a structure where you see a lot of collaboration and coordination amongst government structures in the security cluster. I must say the actual repatriation of the remains is something which we've been working towards for quite some time as the interministerial team led by Minister Khadebe. But obviously the Defence Force, being the entity it is, which does everything with precision, had this enormous responsibility, therefore, of finally drawing up the plan of repatriation right up to how the bodies will be, whether they will be covered or not, sealed, and doing to a point where, when I was receiving a briefing, I heard that they've had to calculate even the amount of time it takes to seal a coffin and put it on the trucks and into the aircraft. And they had to calculate how long it takes them to do that. And that to me actually says, indeed, you in the Defence Force, the country has invested in it. I think it's an asset which all of us should always rally around to support, because when ships are down, you need no other structure but the South African National Defence Force to do the actual planning and the actual implementation of a grand plan for these sorts of things.
But certainly there must have been great challenge as well, in that, of course, South Africa had to apply to or adhere to some of the laws in Nigeria before this repatriation takes place. That being some of the challenges for your department in particular?
No, I don't want to say for my department in particular, but I would say for the whole of government. The good thing, though, is that right through this process, government ensured that there is proper consultation on a regular basis with the government of Nigeria. We work very closely with them. The reason why we see this outcome today, where there are some remains which are being repatriated, it is because of the work which was done between ourselves and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm particularly impressed by the fact that Minister in the Presidency accepted a deployment by the President to be our special envoy. And I know, standing here, that between the time of his arrival in Nigeria and his return this morning, a lot of work was done. And what it means is that you needed political authority as well to be on the ground and to work closely with the government of Nigeria.
Are there planes on standby for, we understand that the identification process for the remaining South Africans in that country is still continuing, but planes on standby for the eventuality that Nigeria says, well, it's all systems go for those who remain there?
Everything. We are committed as the government of the Republic of South Africa to repatriate all the remains of the deceased. So even those who are not here today, tomorrow, if we get a word that they are ready, obviously we'll take responsibility of planning for their repatriation back to South Africa. That's a responsibility which our government has committed itself to, and we will stick by it.
Right, thank you very much for your time there. The Defence Minister, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, telling us a bit about what her department's responsibilities were in the repatriation of these bodies from one country to the other. Just going to turn now and have a look at our monitor there and see what the process is at the moment and how many of these have actually come off. The flight is still there. The trucks, as you can see, are also waiting to move into the hangar where they will be stored. There are 3 trucks at this stage that I can see. 4 trucks in actual fact. 4 trucks that have disembarked. I see one of them is starting to move at the moment. The trucks that have the bodies of the 74 South Africans. It looks as if they'll move towards the hangar at the moment. They've already been decontaminated. Of course, the first one is about to leave. They're heading towards the back end of the hangar where they will be for the remainder of this morning into this afternoon, and certainly driving into, there you have it, into the back. That's right, into the back of that hangar there, and you will not be able to see them once they go through that door. They will be housed behind that. The doors as well on both ends are expected to be closed as well. So all 4 of those trucks that carrying the remains of the South Africans have now come out from that aircraft. Well, a bit earlier on today, we spoke to the Social Development Minister, Bathabile Dlamini, who said that government had basically advised that the families of these victims should not view the remains of their loved ones who have returned here this morning. Let's have a listen.
Because we strongly advised families not to view the bodies because of their state, and we think that could traumatize them more. And we all know that in our culture we believe by seeing our loved ones. So we did try and advise that they should not, but there was you could feel that they do want to see them, but also they also said they must be sure that they are taking the correct people. And we had a pathologist in the morning in the meeting who explained why the bodies cannot be opened. And then the third issue was the issue of children. And then we did say that as social development, we are going to take a responsibility of children who've lost their parents, and we are preparing a package for all of them. Already, there are 2 that lost both their parents who were here at home, and we've already spoken to their school, because the school was already complaining, and then also we are also looking into their accommodation, and we are
just also the Minister, I want to talk a bit about what happens post as well. Will there be social workers who will be sent from the various departments of social development? We know that all but one of the provinces have been affected here in South Africa. The Northern Cape is the only province that is not affected. So will we have social workers with the continuous involvement with the families of these victims?
We have 150 social workers from social development, 50, the SABC 50, and the Army 50. And they will be part of the service today. And again, they will be preparing members of the family to go back tomorrow. And they...
While speaking there earlier to the Social Development Minister, Batabile Dlamini, who was assured the families of these South Africans whom she met with yesterday that her department will ensure that continued support is given to these families, and that some of the social workers and counsellors as well would be able to visit these families in their respective provinces and continue to give support to them as they grieve, as they also prepare for the funerals of their loved ones, of course, which will be held privately. Each of these families would have to bury these loved ones, of course, on their own. But those 4 trucks carrying the remains of the 74 South Africans making their way to the hangar, of course, just here behind me. If I can ask the camera person just to pan just a little bit there towards where you see that sign. That's where those trucks will remain until, of course, the official ceremony, which will get underway this afternoon. Of course, the Deputy President of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, is expected to speak there. In fact, he will speak there and, of course, continue to send his condolences to these family members and assure them that government, of course, has done all that it can to ensure that these the remains of their loved ones were able to be repatriated as soon as possible, and that the team that had gone there to facilitate all of this has now returned to South Africa. But, of course, a lot more work still remains to be done. The remainder of the South Africans, the identification process that still needs to continue for some of them, of course, they will be able to make sure that that is done with speed, and once that's done, the repatriation of those who remain there would be able to take place. But for now, I'll hand back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, Crisalda Lewis. Of course, live at the Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria. We've just witnessed, of course, 3 vans and 4 forensic pathology services mortuary trucks coming and evacuating out of the aircraft. And, of course, we've seen interviews from the Defence Minister, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, as well as Batabile Dlamini, who is, of course, the Minister of Social Development. But we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll keep you abreast with all that's happening.
Kosi sikeleli Afrika malupaga.
Tabo, all the 4 trucks are in there, Kanti. We saw there's nothing else coming. There's no second plane coming. This is the plane carrying the 4. Yeah, carrying everybody. Yeah. 3 planes, one with a Minister Chef, and then the 87, and then can go with the bodies. Yeah. For now. Let us refresh. Vuyo just phoned now. Must he bring you guys anything? Let's eat his money. Oh, guys, I think we'll just rest.
broadcaster could have done this. No, but really, they must just tell us. And they know now.
You break the rules, then your neck is going to be broken. I've missed it.
Where do we go? We walk.
Should not kill. And the rescue runner. Tanti Storm,
He's breaking the rules.
This is the one we both
Hello. Yeah, show you Tini.
Too many pictures.
Yeah? I'm phone after 5 minutes. Yeah? Yeah, makanfonele after 5 minutes ngicela nabanye abafazi uyangiphazamisa. Fazi nabanye abafazi uyangiphazamisa. Wewe nakanga uyazi technology. My camera.
You yes, we an abuser.
We are abuser.
I was about to step in, guys. I was about to step in.
After the day.
Abakufotobomi, abakufotobomi. Oh yeah.
With me.